Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is the second webinar of the Educational Technology series. My name is Minhee Son. I'm the Program Coordinator of NRCAL. And before I pass it on to Dr. Hue-An Wren for the presentation today, I'm going to make a few announcements. Okay. This webinar is going to be recorded and it's for archiving and educational purposes. We would like to post this recording on the website so that people who are not able to join us today can watch the video. You may turn on your camera video so that we can see your faces, but please turn off and mute your audio during the presentation. At the end, we will have a Q&A session where you can turn on your audio and have questions and answers during the presentation. If you have any questions, you can type them and share on the chat, and we will bring them up to Dr. Wren. Okay, lastly, we have a feedback form that we would like everyone to fill out before they leave the webinar, and I will share this link on the chat so that you can spend a couple of minutes sharing us your thoughts and feedback. Okay, so I will pass it on to Dr. Hue-An Wren for today's presentation.
Thank you so much, Minhee. I'm so glad to be here today, and we haven't seen each other for 3 weeks, so I feel like it's been a while, and some of you were there and some of you were not there, so you may remember me and you may not remember me, but if you were at the last presentation where I presented on screencasting tools, then welcome back. If this is the first time you've seen a webinar presentation, my name is Hue-An Wren, and I work at the Garden Grove Unified School District, as well as Cal State Fullerton as a professor here. So before we get started today, I know Minhee had talked about different logical and technical specifics for listening in on a webinar. I'm sure you are all professionals at this point, and I'm sure you've been Zooming more than you'd like to at this point. But just a few reminders and maybe some tips as you are going through our presentation. First and foremost, today's presentation is based on Google Sites. So it is required for you to have a Google login. So in order to have a Google login, just make sure you sign in at the top. And if you see down here in my slide window here, oh, actually, yeah, right here in the slide window, you can see you just need to go in, sign in, and then you'll have all of the G Suite tools available to you. If you're using a school G Suite account, I do recommend you start in that account, because what I'm teaching you today is something that we want our students to experience. So we want to be able to feel what it would feel like for them if they were doing and building these portfolios in their school account. So again, make sure you are logged in to a Google account. If you do not have one, please do so. Some other tips and tricks for Zoom webinars. I showed this last time, and I'm hoping that it's helpful. When I share a screen, whenever the presenter shares a screen, it generally overtakes your screen. But a lot of people don't know that you can find the edge of your screen and you can pull it back so that you can make the presentation square a little bit smaller. And what I like to do is I make the presentation square small, and then I have my participant window, which you can find down here at the bottom, open, as well as my chat window, which you can find down here at the bottom, open. So that way, if I need to speak with Minhee, or if I have a question that I need to ask the presenter, I can just type it right in here. If the presenter has a question for me or wants me to answer something, I have these options here in my participant window. So it's always nice to be able to have that option. Also, I do want you to know that periodically Minhee and I will be going through and muting people if we do hear some background noise or anything like that. I just want you to know it's not a personal thing. We do it just for the convenience and the ability to kind of stop any background noise. I know if I could control the background noise in my room, I would definitely do that, but sometimes it's really hard when you have a presenter. You want to make sure that there is no feedback from another audio that's working. So if we do mute you, please don't take it personally. Know that we're just trying to control the background noise for the rest of the participants. I like to show my face when I'm doing a Zoom session because it's a personal connection. I'm not sure about you these days. I really crave seeing people. I see my family, and I love the time that I have with my family, but to be able to see other people and talk to people and get that face connection is really important to me, and a trick that you can also use with your students when you're Zooming with your students. So I always like to share my video, and that's the reason why I do that. But it's a great tip when you're working with your students, so that they know that you're there and you're their support, and they see you and they remember you, that that's the teacher that they're working with. So today's presentation is one that I've used a lot in my district. We've been presenting on these tools for a few years, but I wanted to really gather and focus this presentation because it's really applicable now, and a tool that can be used relatively well now for our students. As Minhee said earlier, I am a TOSA in the Garden Grove Unified School District. And what that means is I'm a teacher on special assignment, which means I was a teacher for a very long time. And then I became very passionate about ed tech, and they decided to put me into a department where all I do is focus on ed tech. And it's wonderful to see the ability for me to go in and really affect change in this way. So I spend a lot of time researching and applying these different strategies in classrooms with teachers K-12, which is the beauty of my job, is that I do work with teachers who teach kindergarten, TK, preschool, all the way up to 12th grade seniors. So it's a wonderful thing. I also teach at Cal State Fullerton. I teach in the Masters of Educational Technology program. You can imagine that would be the perfect fit for me. I enjoy it. I love it. It is a completely online program, so I'm able to balance that with my job at Garden Grove. If you're interested in that, it has been the most incredible experience. I've seen some great ed tech leaders come out of that program. I do have a little click here if you want to click on that. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be sharing my presentation with you so that you can follow along. And I'm going to throw this in the chat window because I'm going to test everyone's ability to use the chat window. And if you want the presentation, you're going to have to learn how to get into the chat window and grab that presentation. It should be linked there for you so that you can hop on. I see 2 people are hopped on. For those of you who are not familiar with the G Suite services, I can tell that people are hopped on because I see the little names right here. They're popping up right here. All of the people who are sharing this presentation are popping up at the top of me. So I know that you guys are all here. So with that being said, I am going to check in with you guys, see how you're doing. Now that you have this presentation, you do have access to this graphic. For those of you who were here before, I'm sure you remember this graphic and what it means. But this is my way of checking the pulse with the room. It's been, if you were at my last presentation, it's been 3 weeks. So how's it going? You've done remote teaching for another 3 weeks and you're learning some new tools. You learned something new last week that you may or may not have put into practice right away. Have you been able to put it into practice? Are you helping your colleagues with some of these tools and these presentations? So if you could do me a favor in the chat box, tell me how you're feeling. Are you feeling like this person here who is number 9, who is a little bit worried? You see the little sad face right here. He's on the bridge. He's making his way over to success, but he's just not quite there yet, and that's where he's at. Or are you over here? I feel like I'm 17. I'm the one, or 16 maybe. I'm the one cheering you on, saying, you can do this. Let's go. Or maybe I'm 24. I want to be Superman. I'm the one who brings in the strategies and the different tools to help you and your kids get over there. Where are you at right now? Okay, so I see some 11s. Some people are, Mika is here at the 11s. So you're halfway there. You have the tool. I'm sure you have the tools and you're learning things, but you're just a matter of applying it more often. person. I see 24. Where is 20? Oh, do I see 24? Oh, someone's 24. Yay. We have some 24 people. 15. Oh, 15 is almost at the end. Now, you may be a 15 if your school year is about to end, because you may be thinking, okay, I'm almost done. I can get through this. I'm not going to lie. I'm trying to balance teaching and being a mom. So I'm really excited for the end of the school year because the balance between the two has been really hard. So maybe that's why you feel like you're at the end and you're close. Maybe you are 18 and you're helping other people. I see another 11. I see an 8. Where is 8? Oh, 8's right here hanging out. Okay, great. Oh, Dana, you're 20. Okay, let's see here. 20, barely hanging on. You know, I get it. I see a lot of people in this scenario. Hopefully the next time we meet, and you're going to see a lot of me if you continue to attend these webinars, the next time we meet, you'll be further along because we're going to meet next week. I have another one next week. So we'll see how far you are at that point. So now that I've seen where your current state of mind is, tell me about student portfolios and what you've done with student portfolios. I'd like for you just to rate, oh, Dana, I'm with you on that one. I'd like for you to rate your comfort level. On a number between 1 and 10, any number between 1 and 10, what is your comfort level with student portfolios through any means, whether that's a website or a Google site or a plain old piece of paper folder type of portfolio? What's your comfort level? If you could just put the number in the chat box. Are you a 1? Are you a 10? You've used them and you love them, your students use them. So I see some 5s. 5s meaning this is something that, you know, you've seen but you've never actually implemented. Some 4s. I see a couple of 10s, which is great, meaning that you use them in the classroom and you love them. Great. Good. So with that being your level of comfort with student portfolios and the idea of student portfolios, what is your comfort level with Google Sites? What is your comfort level with building a Google site and moving things around, the technicality of it, the way that we move blocks around? I know they had a few updates recently, so if you did it a long time ago, it's a little bit different now. I presented actually on Google Sites a couple years ago for NRCAL, and but the screenshots are all different. Everything is different because they've updated the software. So maybe you've seen it, but you haven't looked at it in a while. Okay, a little bit of comfort here. All right, so let's dive into student portfolios in general. What is it that we use them for? You know, the biggest issue that I have with the digital use divide, not just the digital divide, the digital use divide, what we're seeing come out of this generation of students is students who are consumers. And a consumer of technology is somebody who is literally sitting and consuming the information that's coming out. There is nothing wrong with that. And sometimes we just need to consume information. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what YouTube is and social media. We're just consuming information. But what we need to do now is with technology being as robust and ubiquitous as it is, we need to teach our students how to create technology, how to actively use it, to immerse themselves in situations and design things and create things and collaborate with their peers, break down those physical brick and mortar walls of classrooms and collaborate with people outside of within their classroom. We now have the ability to do that, and we can teach our students how to do that, because when they leave and they become workers in the 21st global economy, they're going to need to know how to do these things. You're going to need to know how to be active users of technology, not just consumers, because after a certain point, those consuming strategies will become null and void if they're actually detrimental to our students. So here's what different ways that digital portfolios can help with becoming an active user of technology. So we look at digital portfolios for different reasons. I originally thought to use them, most people see them as reflection and goal setting. Something you do at the end of the year. You save all of your work and you keep that work for, to show your parents as they come into open house and it sits on the desk and the parents look through it, and it's the one time they do it and they reflect on their best pieces. The beauty of the portfolios, if you do it that way, is you can track really their growth, right? You can see how they grow from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. When we're making digital portfolios, You also embed 21st century skills, because a digital portfolio now is something that's being done online. If you do it through a system that allows you to put everything in there, you can give timely feedback. You can create an authentic audience when you share it with not just the family that come to open house, but now you share it with a wider audience. Digital portfolios can be used and kept and shared all the way through as possibly a job resume or a job portfolio. When they interview for something, they can take a look at it. I actually know many students who take their portfolios with them and interview for positions and send the portfolio prior to the interview so that the interviewers can take a look ahead of time. What a wonderful way to show that you're in technology and you have those 21st century skills. Another wonderful thing about digital portfolios, if you do them right, is you can foster ownership and independence. Ownership of that portfolio, making the portfolio something that you're proud of and that you will use. Because if they're creating the portfolio out of compliance so that they can get the grade that they need to get, then the portfolio is meaningless. The point is to create meaningful learning opportunities, right? We want them to want to do this, to want to be able to create something that they can take with them. And by doing that, you can also use it as a formative assessment. Last time we met, one of the bigger issues that you wanted to talk about was different ways of assessing students. In a classroom, especially in a remote classroom, thinking of ways to assess students where they're not Googling. If you do a question or a quiz, they're gonna Google it. If you have young students and you want them to do something, mom and dad are gonna jump in. So if you just know that that's going to be the case, you don't want to test them on those strategies anyway. You want to test them on what they can do that's thinking and critical analysis of work and creating and really owning what they can do. So a digital portfolio is a phenomenal way to show what you know. So if you're looking for your students to understand how to pronounce and use words in a certain way, have them record themselves, create a digital portfolio, and they can do it at a time that's asynchronous, and you can hit the deadline. When they're all done, you could go back in. No one can Google Mrs. Wren pronouncing subject and verbs. No one can Google that because I have to make it. And that's what you want, is an authentic assessment. And these types of assessments will allow you to do formative assessments that are authentic so you can keep along. So I talked to you earlier about digital portfolios being done properly. When they're done properly, you can hit every single one of these targets. So before you start working and creating and implementing digital portfolios, think about like what it is that you want out of it. So many of our students have to do things because they are compliant. When the student was sitting in your room, it was hard enough to get them to do things for compliance. Now that they're not even in your room, they're not even checking in, how are you going to get them to do things that are compliant? So make the learning meaningful. And when you think about these questions and you ask about these questions for portfolios, then the learning becomes meaningful to the student. You think about, is this learning portfolio a learning portfolio? Is this digital portfolio a learning portfolio or a showcase? A learning means you have a starting point and an end point. A showcase means they're all really great stuff. So a showcase is something you might want to take to a job interview. A learning would be something that you'd want to show growth, you'd use to show growth. How will the portfolio be exported? In my district, students who have a Google account have that Google account for 6 months after they graduate. After that, the Google account is canceled, it's archived. So the students need to somehow take that out. So what will they be doing? If they create everything in Google Sites using their district ID, what will they do afterwards? We do have a strategy in place for that. If you're interested, we can talk about that after the presentation, but you have to think about what's gonna happen, because if the portfolio is gonna end when they graduate, what is the purpose of having a portfolio? It needs to have that authentic audience. What brings people to the portfolio? So a lot of people use digital portfolios to demonstrate mastery. So that's why a teacher would come and see. But does the student want to showcase their ability to speak in a different language? Do they want to showcase their ability to do a science project? So all these different reasons, what would someone want to go? Does the student want to showcase how wonderful it is to be in your class? These are reasons why someone else would want to read their portfolio. What about next year? So often, and this makes me really sad, so often students spend an entire year building a beautiful portfolio as a freshman or a sixth grader, and then they go into their sophomore year and their sophomore teachers don't add to the portfolio. And then it kind of gets dropped, and then that's it. And then they have 1 year of beautiful learning. But if the portfolio meant something to the student, then the student would continue to add regardless of what was happening in that class. That's the beauty, is when you empower the student to own that portfolio, they'll continue to add to it as they progress through the school years. Who owns the learning? We just talked about that. We talked about who gets to put in those things. When I was in the classroom and I had those paper portfolios, I would always tell my kids, pick your best narrative writing, pick your best history project. Everyone puts in, you know, their explorer report. And so the kids really didn't get to choose what went into the portfolio. When they get to choose, they own it. They take ownership of it, and they enjoy that much more. And then how will you make the audience eventually go global? That's easy. With digital portfolios, we can just publish it and everyone can see it. Share the link with your family and your friends. Share the link with the family to share with other people. Post it on social media if it's something that they want to do. So that it's up to them. If you do that, the audience, the work actually gets kicked up a notch because they want to impress everybody. If it's just their teacher, it's not nearly as much pressure. But when they know that other people, especially their peers, then the pressure amps up quite a bit. And then lastly, what impact will this have on the learner's digital footprint? We talk about our digital footprint all the time. We talk about being safe with what we do. And do you really want to put something negative out there because that's going to, you know, be on your digital footprint forever? But we never talk about the positive. This could be something that a college could look at later and say, wow, the student's interests really lie in narrative writing. You know, we do want to look at the student. This could be something that could positively impact their digital reputation. So being able to create these skills is huge. One level that we should be aware of when we're implementing portfolios is what kind of a level do you want to be? Do you want to be the portfolio as a storage? And oftentimes people do that. That's level one. You made something, you put it in there. You know, it doesn't really matter what it is. There's no reflection on it. You just put it in there. Level two could be a workspace collection plus a reflection. So they start collecting things, but then they think about what's going in there and why it's in there, what it's important for them. But then what we want to talk about today is the level three, the portfolio as a showcase presentation, something that they can show and show off, and they can use for years later down the road to show their ability to create and make work. Some tips for digital portfolios: give students time periodically during the year. We're at the end of the year, so this might be a little hard for you to do now, but think about this for next year. If you decide to start and implement, make sure you give them time to do it. If you tell them to do it at home, they're not going to do it. No matter what no matter how exciting it is, they're not going to do it at home. Give them time to invest in it at the beginning of the school year. And then periodically during the year. A great time to do that would be right after testing, right? Or right after a giant benchmark test that you have in your district. They have time, they can work on their portfolio. Periodically check in. Portfolio checks are a common Avid strategy. If your school is using Avid, they have like a binder check. So this would be the same kind of a thing, like a portfolio check. Post a running list of items that students must include. These items could be, yes, these items could be like, I need to see what you showed when we did narrative writing. I need to see your storytelling unit. I don't care which unit you choose, but I need to see some evidence of storytelling. So have a list of those kinds of things available. And then I want to create a working sample. I always like to have a list of working sample so that students can see what is expected of them. When you create the working sample for them, don't feel pressure to make it beautiful. If you want to make it beautiful because that's what you feel confident sharing, then that's great. The beauty of Google Sites is that it's so easy to do. And because it's so easy, you can really make something clean and polished with very little effort. what I have listed here in this presentation for you is a checklist. This one right here is a checklist. If you click on it, you'll see it is just a random portfolio checklist that has, you know, different boxes for things, and you can customize it how you see fit. And then here we also have a digital portfolio peer evaluation. Because I told you earlier, when students have someone else other than their teacher, especially their peers, the pressure is kicked up a notch because it's their peer, right? That there's nobody more important to them than their peers at this age. So this is always a nice, and when you say go evaluate your friend's portfolio, you do need to have a checklist so that the rigor is there when they're looking at the portfolio. So that's a copy for you there if you're interested in that. I wanted to show you a few of samples of some portfolios, and I just happened to be looking through some of the college portfolios that we use in the master's program here at Cal State Fullerton. The one that I have linked for you here is Andrea's portfolio, and this is a Google site portfolio. So these are all Google sites, and this is all done, and I purposely chose portfolios that don't have any other add-ons, right? So you can see this is her homepage here, and she has her little connection here, and then she has all the standards, and what she did was she listed evidence of meeting these standards, and they were allowed to choose what they wanted to list on there, and then they have a reflection for each of the standards. So, and then if you look on standard 2, she has the actual standard listed, the thing that she chose. She needs to open this, and I'll talk more about this later and why this happens. But here's her reflection and more photo essay from Flipgrid. And so you can see how it's hidden in there. So this link is there for you if you wanted to take a look at her portfolio. This is hers right here. But I have a couple others here. Tiffany Kang, this is also a Google site. Notice the background. All she did was import a different image, and I'll show you how to find that. Everything, the navigation is up at the top, except it's not nested like Andrea's. It's all up there. This is nested. She chose to make this layout decision, right? So same kind of layout, right? Here's the object. And this is actually, I believe, a series of photos, screenshots that she put in there. This is her reflection and her standard. And so this is a slideshow that was embedded. Here is another presentation. This is another Google site. Again, same software, same Google site. And there was nothing done differently to make it look like this. All they did was change the graphics, they changed the theme, and that's how it looks different. So you can see how it's always nice to see differences in the different portfolios. So her navigation is here on the side, and you do have the ability to do that in Google Sites, change the navigation to put over here. So let's take a look at standard 1. She has a banner here. She has her presentation here. She has her reflection, and then all these other different standards here. And I wanted to show you two more. Here's Andrea. She has the same Google site. It's nested up here. And then, and that's it. Okay. So you can see, you know, kind of how Google Sites is laid out. It's all, even though they're all so different and they're so unique, it's all the same template. It's all the same tools, which is so great. Today's presentation, with the exception of everything I just said, is going to be very techy. It's going to be a lot of, this is what this does, this is what it does, and this is how it does. Hopefully I gave you a little bit of the foundation as to why you would use a digital portfolio and the purpose of using them. Now I'm going to get into the different tools within the site to customize your portfolio. There's 2 ways really to get started. You can start a Google site for your students, just have them student create, just say, everyone go to sites.google.com, create your student portfolio, and then just have them go at it. There's advantages to that, more creativity. For novice users, students who just are not very technologically savvy, they may have struggle a little bit. And then when you go back in to look at it, you may have a difficult time trying to find the things that you're looking for. Or you can give them a template. If you give them a template, there will be a lot easier to find the things that you're looking for. Your novice users are going to have, you know, everything's going to be laid out, so it'll be easier for them to navigate. There's going to be some scaffolds there for them, but there's less creativity. They all kind of look the same. So what you saw there, they were obviously college students. So we gave them student created. They could do whatever they wanted, but they all kind of ended up the same way anyway. But granted, those are college students, right? We had the requirements for them, and that's why they ended up the way they did. This template gallery, you'll see Google has already created a few templates for you, and I'll show you later what those templates look like. But Google kind of set it up already so that you can just use the one that they use. That does have to be turned on for you when you get to the school site in your district. If you don't see it, it's because it wasn't turned on. So you can ask your Google admin if you can do that. If not, you can always make a template, and I'll show you how to do that later. Or duplicate your master. You create a beautiful one and then just duplicate it so that they can continue to work on it. So some classroom applications that we've seen. I could go on and on and on these, but I just didn't have space. So project websites, if the students are working on a passion project, if they're doing the 20 time, the Google 20 time, or Genius hours, or they're working on a presentation, or they have a science experiment or something like that, then it's a great way to document that learning. Create a parent portal. I've seen this a lot lately. Teachers are using Google Sites to create a place for parents to go to get lessons, to get announcements, to learn how to do certain things. Like teachers are putting, this is how you turn in a classroom, their screencasts on there. So people are using it as a teacher website for parents to go to. This could also be a class resource repository. I have a colleague in our district who teaches math, and he uses these portfolios. Every time he creates a screencast or the students create some sort of a tutorial, they put it on this. And over the years, I think he's been doing this for 3 years now. Over the years, the portfolio has gotten to be huge. And now students that are incoming students to his class can go to that portfolio and look at old screencasts that their peers made. They can look at screencasts that their teacher made. So this place is kind of like a Khan Academy or a YouTube that is student and teacher created, that's classroom created, which is very, very catered and personalized to that classroom. We see a lot class notebooks, right? If you're doing the engineering process, you know, what were you brainstorming, and then how did you iterate, and what reflections did you have? So we see a lot of class notebooks being used for Google Sites. So let me take you into Google Sites. So if you're signed in and you type in sites.google.com, then you're going to see something like this. This is the template gallery right here. And this is where you would start a new site. Now, I'd like for you to see, first and foremost, my presentation. When I create a techie presentation, that's a lot of details, I create it so that you can use it as a user manual. And you are welcome to take it and use the screenshots with your students so that when you're teaching your students how to create a Google site, go to my presentation, take slide 13, 14, and 15, literally copy the slide and put it in your instructions for your students. That's how I create my presentation. So when I am showing you how to do it, I'm actually not going to use my presentation. I'm going to go actually into the product and show you there. So I wanted to make that clear. If we have any questions about how that works and why I'm jumping off and on the presentation, you can understand why I use it that way. So hopefully you guys are able to use the presentation in that sense. So I am here. If you are starting to use a template, great place to start. You would just click on template gallery. Again, if you don't see this and you're logged into your Google account for your school, if you don't see this, it's because your school admin has not turned it on. So a couple of options: you can ask your admin to turn it on, or you can just create one from scratch right here, and then make a copy of that for your students, and just continue to make a copy for your students, which is very easy to do. There's just one button. So I'm going to go into the template gallery so you can see what it looks like. And there's only a few here. There's some personal portfolios, a restaurant portfolio, but right here we have a student portfolio, which is kind of nice. When you click on that, it will actually create a student portfolio for you to use in your with your name, and you own it and everything. So it's a really nice way of seeing that. So instead of creating a new one, I've already created one. And I'm going to use this one as my sample for today, as this is the one that I will be working through, so you can kind of see what it looks like. So this is the interface. This is what it looks like when it's being built. Okay, you saw my samples earlier of what it looks like when it's finished, but this is what it looks like when it's being built. When it's a template, they have already created pages for you. And you can see those pages in the navigation over here, right? So I have in this particular one, this is my heading. This is my About Me section. And this was all created. I didn't really add anything. They added these placeholders. And then there's a little bottom footer right here, right? So these are all chunks. In Google Sites, everything moves as a chunk. So the first thing we want to look at is the header. We are on our home page, right? This is the home page. It's the first page people go to when they see our site. So we're going to look at this home page. And if we want, when you click on the insert, you can insert things on your page. Let's just look at the header though. On the header, I can change it. Right now, it's a large banner, because I really like the little girl's face there, so I thought that was really neat. But if I wanted to, I can make it a small banner, so it would cut off more. Or I can just use the title and take the picture out altogether. Or I can make this the cover. The whole thing is just like the cover of a book. But I don't really like that. I like the banner, so because it doesn't take up too much space and allows me to put other things there. So I'm gonna leave that there. Some other things that you can personalize is if you wanted to change the image, you can upload your own picture from your computer, or you can select from some of Google's images. And earlier I showed you a few different presentations in Google Sites. They chose one of these. These are all embedded within. If you want, you can do a Google search. You can look in your photos. These are all my photos, my family's photos. And you can look in your Google Drive to see if you can see anything there. So it's a really nice way of really just changing things up. So I'm going to use this one because I know earlier we saw this, and there it is. It just changes it, right? Really easy to do. And then I can rename it. Okay, I want to rename this to Mrs. Wren's Learning Journey. And notice that it's the title. I can make it bold if I wanted to make the whole thing bold. I think it's already bold though. I can do italics. Oh, I have to select the whole thing. There. I can format really any way that I want to. But this is my title. This is not the title of the website. This is the title of my page. The title of my website is right here, right? So I'm going to change Mrs. Wren's portfolio. And if you look at the top, once I press enter, if you look at the top of my menu, this is the website. That's the title of the website. So you can change that there. You can add a logo there if you wanted. I usually add the Cal State Fullerton logo, the little elephant there. Okay. So once you're there, that's how you do the header. Now let's add some text. So I'm going to add a brand new page just because it's always nice to add a brand new page. And you start from a blank page. So here's my header. I picked that. This is the title because I called it testing. Now I'm going to add a text box. I can drag this over, or I can double click, which opens up that little menu. So this is my text. It's really cool. Okay. And now if I want to make that a title, I can change this to heading, which changes that. I can even change the color, make it look like that. So many different ways to customize it, right? And it all works within the same. So then now I can add an image. I'm going to look for an image of a notebook. I wonder, yeah, there we go. So I'm going to pick this one here. There it is. And now I can mess around with my notebook. I can crop the notebook if I wanted to. Move things around. Okay, and then let me add, see if I can find something in my drive. Well, maybe I can find today's presentation. That would be great. Or a picture. Here we go. Someone drew a picture of me. Put that in there. I can make it smaller. Notice the lines here. Do you see the lines in the back? That's where I'm moving. I can stay within that graphic. If I wanted to, I can take it down here and add a whole nother section. And then maybe I want, this is the picture someone drew of me, right? Or I can make this smaller and add another picture right here. I've been having great luck with dogs lately. So let's try find a cute little dog. Here we go. We'll insert that dog. This is my dream dog. Now, very basic, easy adding of tools. If you want some graphic design tips, use these layouts. These are really nice. And that's what they did in the template. So if you want, you can just drag a layout over like that. And then here you would just add the picture. Here you would add the header. Here you would add. Super easy, so much nicer way of doing things. Here are those other things that we saw. This is collapsible text. So if you click on it, it'll open up. And then if you click away from it, it'll close so that it saves space. A table of contents. Earlier, you saw an image carousel. So if you wanted to put a series of pictures, you put that in there, and then the user can just scroll through the carousel to see. You can put a button, a divider, you can embed a YouTube video, all these different Google tools that you can put in there. Very, very easy way of embedding things onto your Google sites. All right, I'm gonna go back to my slideshow to make sure I didn't miss anything. We talked about adding things and customizing the text. We talked about image search and how to format things. We talked about adding things from your Google Drive. And we talked about dragging layouts over. Wow, I did a pretty good job. All right, great. This seems to be a good practice point for you guys. I have a little timer that goes on over there, but I have to turn the volume down to be able to do so, to be able to use it. So what I'm gonna do is give you a few minutes, really just probably less than 5 minutes, to start playing around. The way to start is to open up a new tab and go to sites.google.com. And then what you would do is you can choose if you want to go to the template gallery to click on one of those, or create something from blank, from scratch. So about 5 minutes for you guys to do that, and then come back to me, or we're going to be sitting here, Minhee and I will be sitting here watching the chat menu if you guys have any questions. So go ahead and try that out and try and play things out. And I promise you, I know this layout very well. If you ask a question like, I don't know what happened to the graphic, I'm probably sure I could figure out. So go ahead and play with it and try and create something. I want you to get started on a sample for your students. Get started on something that you can use to show your students an example, right? And we want you to be able to create something worth using, just the shell of something really quickly. And I'm gonna play that little video sound just so that we have some working music. I'm going to give you about 1 more minute if that's okay. If you need more time, please message me in the chat and I will give you a little bit more time, but one more minute. Okay, so I had a great question come up in the chat window as you guys were working. We're talking about copyright and the use of articles and photos. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I'm a very, very big stickler on the use of copyrighted images and articles. So what we're hoping for in a student portfolio is their true work. Right? So when they're publishing something that they created and they wrote, hopefully copyright is not an issue. If that is, and that's a whole nother issue on the grading side. But so in regards to that, then yes, that should not be an issue. If you are publishing work, generally when you're looking at adding articles and information from other websites, you do have to gain permission. You have to have permission to be able to use articles. Oftentimes though, if you look at the fair use rules, we as educators can use fair use as a reason why certain articles and certain pieces can be used. And if you want to know more about fair use, please stick around because I can help you identify what things are fair use and what is not. I have a wonderful video on fair use and how educators can use it. I can find that link for you if you want to stick around at the end. But images, if you decide you want to use images in Google Sites, what I would do is I would always have them search for images from here, because all images searched from here are copyright free, which means Google has already filtered for images that people can use, and you are allowed to use that in your site without having to worry about copyright, or they have a Creative Commons license associated. I mean, copyright is such a big issue. I've done hours of presentations on just copyright alone, so I really could go on and on about this, but there are a few safeguards that Google puts in to help you with that. If I did not answer your question well enough, please stick around. I can give you my contact information and we can chat about that later. So, okay, let's move on a little bit and get into the more advanced features, and then we can talk about publishing. So we talked about adding pages earlier. I showed you how to add a page, and you would just click on this tab here and you can add a page down here at the bottom. You can nest pages. In this particular presentation, the pages are nest. Earlier, I showed you when we looked at navigating, you saw somebody had some of them listed up at the top, and then somebody had them hidden. So when you click on it, it opens up a whole nother menu. That's called nesting, and that's how they did it right here. So when they did it, they created a subpage, and that subpage is nested. So you don't see these pages until you click on the little menu, which is a really nice way of doing that. Let's see here. We talked about adding pages and a subpage. Themes. If you wanted to change the theme, so this theme is this particular one, and if I wanted to, I can change it to this theme, which would change the font, it would change the color, I could make it this dark red kind of color, I could change the font to a heavy font, or if I like the lighter font, I can do that as well. So you can customize the themes here. This is it for themes. I want to make that known. Google Sites is very easy to use because a lot of the features are locked so that you can't really customize more than this. A lot of people text me or message me later and say, hey, how can I get this font in my Google site? You can't. You have to use the font styles and color schemes that they choose. There is a hacking coding type way of doing it, but for the most part, in a Google site, the reason why it's so easy is because you have these limited color schemes and so forth. So that's all that you can do when you change the font. Now, I'm going to look at this menu up top. These are a little bit more advanced menus. And these are right up here at the top of your screen. Obviously, this is the undo and the redo button. This is a preview button. I love this button because I get to see what the site looks like before I publish it. So right now, this is what I have. I'm going to click preview, and this is what the site would look like if I were to publish it. It's not published right now, but this is what it would look like. So I can test out the navigating, I could test out the links, test everything out before I do it. And then when I'm done, I can even look at it as if somebody was using a tablet, somebody was using a phone. This is what it would look like. So it's always nice to see this kind of a preview. So that's always nice. This button right here is the link button. So if you do want to share it, you can send the link out to your parents and then go from there. Add a collaborator. If you want 2 students to work on one, then you can go there. These other settings are kind of cool. If you want to change the navigation to the top, earlier we saw a couple of examples. Can change it to the side, and then now it's over here. Okay, really easy customization up at the top. We also have an announcement banner here. This is my little banner right here. So it will show up on every single page. It's very simple, easy to use. For the most part, those are your advanced skills. So really easy ways of customizing. If you wanted to add a collaborator, make sure that they have the ability to edit. When you publish, you can choose how you want to publish it. If you do use Google Sites in your district, oftentimes you have the option of locking it to your district. So anyone in the district can see it, but no one outside the district can see it. I talked to you earlier about these. These are documents that the student created, but she created it within her domain and she did not open it up so that everyone can see it. If you want everyone to see it, you have to open up the permission so that everyone can see it. All right. That's pretty much it. I went through adding pages, went through changing the theme. I went through looking for a collaborator or a publisher. Normally what I would do is give you some time to look at these different settings and advanced skills. But I wanted to point out these other exploring opportunities for you here. These are hyperlinks. So if you click here, you will see, let's see here. There. Oh, I think that they're there. They should be links. I just can't grab them right now. So let me go into view mode. There we go. So now when you go into view mode, you can take them. These are all different articles and resources that you can look into to learn about digital portfolios in high school English class, portfolios in Flipgrid. Flipgrid is great for hearing the student talk, talking about the portfolios and how it works with the whole child and really fostering the entire student as you're looking at not just their skills in school, but everything else that is important to them. Any questions at this point? I see one question here about nesting the pages. Let me exit out of this screen and go into nesting pages. Here we go. Oh, maybe it's up here. I just had it. Where did it go? Oh, well, here we go here. So when you're looking on your pages, this is your layout for your pages. If you want the page to nest like that, where it hides it until you open it, you would just go to the big page and click on the 3 dots. We call them the skinny snowman, and you add a subpage. When you add a subpage, the subpage lives underneath the main page. So you don't actually see it until you click on it. So here we see activities, you don't see it until you click on it and then it shows up. It's a great way to hide different, if you have a lot of text. Any other questions that I can answer for you about creating these? Again, I know it's a lot of technical things, but that's why you have the presentation. Hopefully you made a copy of the presentation. For those of you who don't know, all you have to do is click on File, make a copy, and do the entire presentation, and this will now stay in your Drive. Or you can just, you should see an Add to Drive button right up here at the top, and you can just add this presentation to your Google Drive. Any other questions that I can answer for you? Maria asked about permissions. And, you know, I don't think that, or I haven't heard that happen. It might be the way they shared it. So when they share it, they actually just changed this. If you want to add a collaborator, I'm going to add my husband, and he can be an editor, right? So that means that he is able to go in and do everything to it, as well as me. So by doing it that way and giving them editing permission, then they can go in and see the Google site and be able to edit it as well. So it might be from the way they shared it with you. Maybe when you have them share with you, you show them this graphic right here, and make sure that they have, they invite people to edit. Maybe that's something that you can show, and just it'll prevent them from losing permission, because we want them to have permission to edit as well as you, right? So that would be good. What other questions? You're welcome. Okay, Minhee, I'm gonna stick around. If you wanna close out, I'm gonna stop sharing,
Okay.
and you can finish up.
All right. Thank you so much, Hue-An, for the wonderful presentation. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. I'm going to share here on the chat a link to the webinar feedback form. Please take a moment to fill out the feedback form. If you participated in the first webinar, you might have done this already. Please do it again, and you can focus on what has changed since the first webinar. And maybe we'll give everyone about 1 or 2 minutes to fill out the feedback form. Oh, we have a question actually. Maybe Wren can address this while people fill out the form.
I see the question. Dana, maybe I can address it while the rest of you are filling out the form. So Dana, what I recommend for peer editing is publishing the site and giving their peer the published site. Because once you publish it, you can always update and publish it again. So just for integrity of the site, so that students don't accidentally mess something up or they delete something that was important. So what I would do is when they peer edit, have that checklist ready to go in a separate Google Doc or even a piece of paper, and then send the published link over there.
And while we wait, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Thank you for filling out the feedback form. Last announcements before we wrap up the webinar. Just a reminder that we have more webinars coming up in this educational technology series, all with Dr. Hui and Wren. The next one is next week, right, on Thursday. And a Zoom link will be sent out, a new Zoom link will be sent out for each webinar. So keep that in mind, and you get an email from NRCAL at fullerton.edu on Wednesday, the day before the webinar. And just some announcements about different programs and resources available at Cal State Fullerton. I will share the links here on the chat after I wrap up with the slides. The Center for Creativity and Critical Thinking also has some workshops and Professional Development Learning Series. Please take a moment to check them out. We have different programs, credential programs, doctoral programs, and master's programs in the College of Education at Cal State Fullerton. And that's it from us today. Do you want to stay around for a little bit? Do we have any other questions? Any last questions before we end the webinar?
If you could, this is to you, Trans, because you were talking about the copyright, and if you could show us how we could check ourselves online on how to see the parameters of copyright for certain resources and materials online, that'd be great.
Excellent. Yeah, I can do that. Actually, if you give me just a few minutes, I have the perfect video that explains fair use. And then I'm going to grab that link so that I can put it in the chat box for anyone who's interested. But then I'll talk more about the fair use, the tenets of it and so forth. So give me 1 second to find it here. Okay, let me grab. Here is the link to a video. Now, this is a video that's simple enough really for anyone, anyone to use. Like, you could use it with students as well. But the thing about fair use is that with teachers, let's see here if I can find the presentation. That goes with teachers often claim that fair use is what they would use for being able to use anything, but that's actually not the case. Fair use is what we would use for we have to meet the minimum requirement of the 4 tenets, being one being that we're not going to make any money, which a lot of people know that that is what it is. We're not making any money. We are actually changing the purpose of the artifact. So if you're using something and you are literally just copying it and claiming as that is your, then you are not able to use fair use for that. But if you want to change it and say, I want to use this to support my understanding of the whole child using digital portfolios, then you can use it, and that meets the fair use requirements. They also require you to only use a certain part. You're only allowed to use about, I believe it's 25% of the actual item, whether it's the article or the, and then you give creative credit to the user. So that video that I just linked in the chat, grab that link. It's a great animation, very quick video about copyright. I also have another presentation, but I have to go digging through it. It's a series of like 5 or 56 different slides on copyright and being able to stay within those. And Minhee, if would you mind if I just sent it to you? And then I believe, who was it that was asking? I can't remember who was asking. Let me see here. I think it was Tweevee, right? Tweevee asked.
Right.
Tweevee, if I can, yeah, if you could just email Minhee or myself, really, you're welcome to email me, then I can send you that presentation that I have that really outlines it with all different resources. I even have this extremely long infographic that takes you through all the different reasons and you know, like a flow chart as to whether you can or cannot use that particular document. So Minhee, I'll send it to you if anyone asks you, and then you guys all have my contact information from the slides, so you're welcome to email me about that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Wren.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so
I'm so happy to be here.
That is the end of our second webinar. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you in the third webinar next week on Thursday, same time, 4 to 5 p.m. All right. Bye, everyone.